I am noting the amount of players in Super League now that are of State League calibre. And I am also very cognizant of the fact that the game is in a state of flux at the moment. Things are changing. The NCL has come under the RFL structure. The contracts that are dual have been scrapped. Super League expanded from 12 to 14, all that kind of thing. My question, and what I want to have a chat about, is why are clubs still using agents to get State League quality players, so using the path of least resistance, when right in their backyards there will be players in the Championship and top amateur that just need some polish, who would do just as good a job. So if you think about getting a player from overseas, you have to find them housing, you have to find kids' schools, flights home if they need those. It's quite expensive, and it's also quite a lot of work. That's just with, say, 4 or 5 players. You need people on the ground helping to set the house up and making sure all the home comforts are ready for when you've flown over, okay, as a player. So we used to do this in England for NRL quality players and sometimes some of the big hitters. Now it seems clubs are doing the same for players who play for the State League on more and more occasions. Why are clubs doing this, John, when England was so poor, when England haven't won the Ashes or a World Cup for 50 odd years, and there's players underneath in the system? And it's got back to this because it used to be quite significant. The top amateur teams were better than so many professional teams 25, 30 years ago. I think it's starting to get back there a little bit now, because I know of many players who are choosing to drop to the Championship because they can work full time and then earn something in the evening, and then combine the two amounts of money, they have a better lifestyle. But also, many of them have a loyalty to their amateur club, and also a loyalty to the game as a part of a community. Why aren't clubs spending more time looking at what is in the backyard?
Yeah, I think there's a number of reasons, in my opinion, for that. I think just the point on the amateur teams, I don't think that gap is closing, because if you look at the recent Challenge Cup results, you know, there was 100 nils, 80 nils.
But the team, that wasn't Wathbrow or Thatto Heath or Thornhill or somebody in the Heartlands. It was somebody elsewhere. There was
Thatto Heath. There was a real mixture of teams.
Who did some of the northern teams play?
Oh, I'd have to look at the fixture list off the top of my head, but I know there was a whole list of amateur teams, and they all got, spanked. And I mean, It's not surprising when you've got semi-professionals against amateurs. It's not like soccer where you can park the bus and play long ball football.
No, I get that. It's more about the system, John. It's more. So I know this week or last week there might have been some results that are not great, but a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old that's really talented but's just missed out on Super League selection for whatever reason, they might decide to go down that pathway. So for the next 5 years, they may get less training, less professionalism. So their standard of football is going to drop a little bit over time, isn't it? Right? That's my point. This isn't, I don't think we can take a snapshot and go, this is where we're at. You said it yourself, and I'm going to link in what I was going to bring in Media Watch. I went to bed last night just before I fell asleep. Something that really helped me go to sleep was an article that came through from John Davidson about the rugby league brain drain in England.
And let me just, before you continue on, that is actually something I wrote 4 or 5 years ago, which popped up on my Facebook memories, and I reread it, and I thought I'll repost this because I think it's just as permanent now as it was then.
And so if you think of that brain drain, imagine how many players have turned their back on the game because of the lack of pathway.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just players, as I wrote. It's coaches, it's people in marketing, it's journalists, it's CEOs, there's countless people.
So instead of looking at a snapshot in time, what I'm saying is, if there's a brain drain, can you imagine how many players are turning their back on the game of rugby league in England because there's so many overseas players? And then imagine those players are state league quality players.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, I brought out the results of the second round of the Challenge Cup, and there is a mixture in terms of the amateur teams, but Keighley 66, I think, is it Heworth, or I don't even know where they are, but 66-0. Hunslet beat Sangley 44-0. Swinton Lions beat Innsrose Bridge 44-26, which is a competitive game. Barrow Raiders beat Wigan St Jude 76-4. Salford beat Hammersmith Hills Hoist, which is a Kiwi Aussie club in London, 42-10. Right. Widnes Vikings beat Thurrow Heath Crusaders 76-0.
All right. It's not a result service. Thank you. I get the idea. but that's a snapshot in time, John. Right. So some of those players at Wigan St Jude's, Wathbrow, wherever it is, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, they may have decided, I'm just going to play for my amateur club. That's if they stay in the game. Yeah. If there's a brain drain, where we're going to feel it? In playing stocks. Because in theory, all the better stocks will rise into the professional ranks. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're going to leave the game, part of this brain drain that you're talking about, you're more likely to stay in it if you're going to get financially recompensed for your work, aren't you?
Yes, of course.
There's a lot of rugby league players and there's a lot of sports people in general who don't necessarily enjoy the game like they used to, but they do it because they get paid for it. So the brain drain. So I admit I might have been wrong about the closeness of amateur clubs right now to English professional clubs. I understand that, but I'm talking about the chats I've had with people over the years about people who've left the game, people who could have played professionally, and I still go back to my point. Why aren't we providing a scenario that makes these players think that they have a fair crack, and instead, why are we getting state league players?
Yeah, I think there's
a great expense.
There's a couple of reasons for that. I think partly, a lot of the scouting and recruitment is of quite of a poor standard. I think some clubs just rely on a handful of agents who have connections in Australia.
It's easy. You just pick up the phone and go, who should we?
Yeah, and there are exceptions to that rule, and they do fantastic recruitment, and they have people on the ground in Australia, and they have relationships, and they recruit really well. But a lot of them don't. A lot of them recruit off YouTube or past performances. I think also there's a belief, and you could say this is right or wrong, but I mean, there's a lot of points to it being right in many ways, but that doesn't mean it's in every case. But there's a belief that the development systems in Australia are better than in the UK. So if you get a 21-year-old halfback from Redcliffe, for example, not Redcliffe, Toowoomba, he's going to be better than a 21-year-old halfback from Sheffield because he's played at a higher standard through his junior years. He's had a better level of coaching. So I think that's another element. I think the other element is obviously there is really no reserves football, let's be honest. They play 5 or 6 games a year. So that was scrapped years ago. It's kind of tried to be brought back, but not really worked. So there is a big gap from that academy level. So if you end your academy level, whatever it is, 18, 19, and then you're not in a Super League system, as in not in that top 30 or you're not playing regularly, where do you go? You go to the championship, or you either go and play amateur or you effectively retire, don't you? So there's a big cut-off point at that level.
Which proves my point. Proves my point.
Yeah, and and people have been banging on about that for a while. So I think that's the other issue. The other issue is participation. Like, participation is been declining, if not stagnant. I mean, the fact that female participation has grown in recent years, which they put together to say, oh, look, overall participation's going all right, but it isn't. It's gone downhill. And the thing is, there's not really anything done by the head office to promote participation. Schools rugby is almost non-existent in my experience. Like rugby league, there isn't really, like there is in Australia, rugby league schools. It's not pushed by schools, even in, rugby league areas. And there's not really development officers. They've all been sort of cut back in places like London and Newcastle and the Midlands. That was 10 or more years ago. The funding is gone. So we're not really pushing, trying to get kids picking up, Steedens and then improving the overall participation. So the playing base is definitely reduced. The depth of talent is not there. But I do agree with you, Lee, in the sense that I think there is definitely players in the championship who could do a very good job. There are like diamonds to be found, to be polished. I just think a lot of clubs probably think it's safer to go with some Aussie who's been in an NRL system for a couple of years than, some kid who...
It's lazy. It's path of least resistance.
Yeah. I think it is. I think it is lazy, but I think that's the way. That's the way. And to be honest, I think a lot of fans probably see that they'd rather have some Aussie who's played 2 games for the Newcastle Knights and most of his career in New South Wales Cup than, a young junior from, I don't know, Halifax. Like, I think that there is that.
They turn out for locals in their backyard, though.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying that fans don't want to see their local juniors do well and whatever, but, there's all, I see it on social media, the reaction, we've signed so-and-so from the NRL or so-and-so from Australia, like he must be good. Like that's the kind of stereotype. And it's not always the case, as we know. You mentioned about bringing players over, like homesickness is a real thing, the clash of cultures. Some people can't handle moving 15,000 miles across from the other side of the world away from their friends and family, like they struggle. And also, the temperature is a big thing, the way the game's refereed. There's lots of things. There's lots of things to adjust. The other thing I think that is an element is obviously the League One is gone this year. We have the Championship and League One merge, but there's a bit of a watering down between the divisions. Like it's not like where the NRL is so far up here and then you have sort of New South Wales, Queensland Cup, and then you have, below that Ron Massey and you have your Group 9 and your Group 8 and whatever. Super League is not that far ahead of the Championships. It's not on a big pedestal. Like, it would be great.
And the range of standards in the Championship will be massive this year, I would have thought. There'll be
that's
part-time teams playing against full-time teams.
Yeah, you've got teams like London and Oldham who are, London are full-time. Oldham have got a lot of ex-full-time players or, have got a massive budget. And then you'll have teams that are on, an eighth of that budget or if not less. So there's already divisions within divisions and there will be in Super League. You'll have Hull KR and Wigan and Leeds and then you'll have York and Bradford and Toulouse and there'll be light year between them. So playing in Super League isn't as attractive a proposition, I think, if you're earning okay money as a part-timer in the Championship now.